I have to admit, this is such a peculiar entry for me. I've talked about it before. In order for a Pokemon game to make it on this countdown, it has to have some really special component that makes it significant to me. And the thing that makes Pokemon Fire Red significant to me is probably what you might guess. I am fiercely nostalgic for this game, this world, this music. What makes it odd, however, is that I first played this game in high school, and it wasn't even Fire Red, it was plain old normal Red on the Game Boy. I had already played most Pokemon games that I've experienced by this point, so what made this one hit so hard for me? That is actually a question. I'm not going to offer a definitive answer here, I don't really know. Is it that I love Smash Bros, which puts a very strong emphasis on Generation 1 Pokemon and music? Is it because these Pokemon and the general aesthetic of Gen 1 is, to this day, what defines the Pokemon series in a mainstream light, which is where I engage with Pokemon most often? Is it because there was something quaint about experiencing such important video game history? Yes to all of the above, and probably a lot more. I believe all of this contributed to a feeling of personal connection with a game that I didn't play until I was well beyond the years of the target audience. But it does go further than that, believe it or not. I do have what I would consider to be more legitimate reasons to really love the original Pokemon games even to the current day. Although they too are weird, depending on your perspective. The original Pokemon games, of which this entry is a remake of, are arguably the last time in mainline Pokemon history where the shackles were off, or non-existent to be more accurate. Every Pokemon game after this is absolutely drenched in series tradition that has been dubbed necessity at this point. Arrival, enemy teams, collecting badges, legendary Pokemon for the box art, 2 versions. All series have conventions they follow, but preferably, those conventions should be delivering on some great need that the fanbase yearns for, or a thematic through line that's important to respect. For me, these conventions in Pokemon have always felt like they simply derive from an adherence to a formula that has been deemed financially successful and thus shouldn't be strayed from. I'm not saying that is how it is definitively, I'm saying that is how it has always felt to me, as much as I would like to convince myself otherwise. It can make the series feel cold and calculated. It can make it feel like a low-quality jigsaw puzzle where pieces are forced together unnaturally, rather than taking the time to find the pieces that would truly best match this particular experience. The original Pokemon games had no such template to follow, and because of that, every creative decision feels purposeful, and it's obvious in what their purpose is. You need to collect badges to provide a sense of growing as a trainer. You need an enemy team to give the story heavier stakes so your actions feel more weighty. You need a rival to provide more personal motivation for becoming stronger. There are multiple versions because the game was meant to promote community on the playground, and there weren't even legendaries on the boxes. Not only do these decisions feel more intelligently made in these older games, but because they weren't required to iterate on the ideas or subvert them or grow them thanks to 20 years of a continuous franchise, the ideas are allowed to be simple, and they benefit so greatly from that. Each of these elements are in their most basic form, distilled down to their core needs and how they are meant to service the game design as a whole. This is how Pokemon Fire Red gets to sidestep the issue of overly cumbersome storytelling given to game elements that really don't warrant them. The original Pokemon is simple, in part because it knew what its value proposition was. Finding fun monsters, all of which have become iconic on a level that's hard to quantify. Training them, becoming stronger than the obstacles in front of you. It all makes sense, it all services those core pillars of the game's design, rather than these marketable traditions becoming the game's core design. That is why I can actually play and seriously enjoy Pokemon Fire Red to this day. It knew what it was, and every choice was made with the premise of servicing that identity. Its simplicity is its strength. The omnipresence of Kanto Pokemon design in modern culture is certainly what got me in the door of liking this game, but as my knowledge of the medium grew, which should pull me away from simpler and more childish games like Pokemon, particularly earlier Pokemon, so did my respect and appreciation for this game's design and strength of intention. If you ask me, though I know this is likely unpopular to core Pokemon fans, I think we might be due for another round of true Gen 1 remakes.